Greetings and God bless. Welcome to another episode of Pastor Mike, Dynamic Voices for a Diverse Church, powered by The Witness, a Black Christian collective. I'm your host, G. Tyler Burns. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at G. Tyler Burns. Please follow at your own risk. And joining me, as always, is the founder of The Witness. He has a very extensive bio. He is the man, the myth, the legend, the 6-time best-selling author, Mr. Blue Check Verified himself. You can follow his writings at JemarTisby.substack.com. Dr. Jemar Tisby, what's going on, brother?
You know, we're both audiophiles by this point. We've been podcasting for over a decade, but there are some things you can only get visually.
Right. I was going to ask about the fit here. Can you explain for the people? Okay, so we're actually going to do this. So podcast listeners, we're going to engage visually for a moment. So you need to go to YouTube to check this out. But listen, tell them what you rocking, man.
I'm wearing my Scuderia Ferrari team shirt for Formula One. By now, if you don't know, you ought to know. Go back and listen to some of our Cultural Artifacts episodes. We've got a whole squad of F1 fans. We're trying to get you on board.
Wow.
We didn't even plan that.
I mean, I'm a fan of the show Drive to Survive. I just don't know if I just want to sit there and watch them drive, though, but I'm a fan of the show.
Sit there and watch them drive. Well, that's one way to describe it. Okay. I'm wearing my bright red Ferrari shirt with the Tifosi because, number one, it was always my second favorite team. My favorite team is whatever team Lewis Hamilton is on.
Of course, absolutely.
And as folks would know, he has switched from Mercedes, his longtime team, where he won multiple championships, record number of championships, now to Ferrari.
See, I know that.
Likely close out his career there. So
see, I know that. I know enough to be conversant. I know enough to be dangerous, man.
I just want to explain to the viewers and the listeners what the fit is today.
It's very rare that I'm on the outside looking in on pop culture stuff. So this is a very weird feeling for me.
Sports,
I got to be honest.
Culture too, yeah.
Sports pop culture. I don't know. I feel like I'm behind on this. You know, it's wild. You know what I also feel like I'm behind on? I feel like I'm behind on what the next cultural slang word is that they trying to stop us from living into. Back in the day, you know, it was cultural Marxism.
Oh my goodness, that's a way throwback.
Okay, we got to take it back. Cultural Marxism. Then before that or after that, somewhere in that vicinity, it was Social Darwinism. Yeah, you know, I'm taking it back.
Yeah, they just be throwing words
together.
They
just be throwing words together. They thought they were spitting too.
Social justice warriors.
Social SJWs.
I still want the T-shirt.
Hey, that's kind of fire. Kind of hits now.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? Then they moved to the Black Lives Matter activists. Okay,
all lives matter.
Blue
lives matter.
Yeah. Right. Musk lives matter. All the above. Then they went from that to CuRT, CRT.
Yeah, what's up with CuRT? I thought that was a thing.
I thought CuRT was the thing. Critical race theory. I thought that was the thing.
For a minute, yeah.
Is this all? Because it's just a side note. Is this all like a ploy to like sell more books written about the stuff that is harmful? Because every one of these things has some sort of book attached to it.
Let me tell you something.
And then they move on, and then it was supposed to be a phenomenon. Why is it only lasting a year if it's a phenomenon?
Every accusation is a confession. They always call us grifters. They always say we race baiters doing it for the money. Guess what they are doing? Every time they come up with a new label, a new shock kind of thing, there's a book about it.
Profit.
Yeah, no.
That's very interesting. And now we have DEI.
Well, don't forget about woke.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course. How could I ever forget about woke?
I think that's still part of it.
That's still part of the zeitgeist. Yes. Okay. So I think woke hasn't passed. I think they're still using that language. It's short, it's catchy, and I think people understand and know that it comes from Black culture and Black slang. And as a result, I think they're using it as a particular jab.
Which is a particularly dumb one because it's like, what's the alternative to being woke?
Right.
You asleep? I mean, you comatose. What's going on?
So now we have DEI, okay? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. But they don't say that. They say they oppose DEI because I found it's very interesting. When you kind of pin people down, so you're saying you oppose diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is that what you're saying?
No. Well, I oppose to like unqualified people just getting a job, because exactly. You know.
So not everything is DEI. The halftime show is DEI. The plane crashes are DEI. any problem goes back to DEI.
Yeah, Black History Month, DEI. Juneteenth is DEI.
Lift Every Voice, a DEI song.
Lift Every Voice is DEI song. Positions, corporations,
DEI.
Organizations trying to have a more diverse DEI, and negative.
Now, this has been interesting. So what do you think about, before we get into the nuts and bolts of this order and how the president is currently rolling this back and using his minions to do so, what do you think about kind of the backlash from corporations rolling back DEI policies and how Black people have responded to that? Because that's a pretty significant moment, right?
So you're talking about like the calls for boycotts, things of that nature?
Yeah, exactly. So you got Target.
Target's
they're
the
ones
big
that
one.
have rolled back.
Yep.
Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
And then also now some have stood up and said, no, we're actually going to keep it, like Costco or Delta or what have you.
I mean, it's problematic when you've got corporations that are so ubiquitous, right? A Walmart, a Target, an Amazon, a Google. Those are hard to divest from simply because they're so convenient. They're so ubiquitous.
Yeah.
What I've done is like with Amazon, and this is more connected to Bezos quashing the endorsement for Harris at the Washington Post. Almost all my links you'll see online to my books go to Bookshop.
That's good.
Which is, it's just a good thing anyway to support.
Amazon is problematic in and of itself.
So big, big time, right? But again, it's very convenient.
It's ubiquitous.
It's hard to divest from.
Yeah.
And then there was this argument about, say, like Target, right? Where they pulled back on the DEI stuff due to political pressure. They were fearing about their bottom line, all that stuff. And then there was this debate online. Well, is boycotting really doing what you want it to do?
Right.
Is it sticking it to the corporation, or is it actually harming Black brands that have a place at Target? What did you think about all that?
So I think I hear what people are saying. And I think sometimes people desire a level of organizing that doesn't fit the emotion of the moment. So I think sometimes organizers and activists want the populace, the Black populace, to organize perfectly or to organize in a way that makes sense to them. And the vast majority of Black people, yes, there is a way in which we could do that, but there are so many competing ideas about what that looks like. I think Black people were saying, and this is why I support people who say, oh man, I'm going to boycott this place, or I'm not going to go to this place. They were saying any organization, any entity that backs down from the tsunami wave of the presidency and this resurgence of white Christian nationalism and white supremacy, we don't have respect for you anymore. And so it's not so much, oh, well, people were getting down into granular details. Like, what about, well, Costco does this, and then it's this, and then actually the DEI jobs, they go to white women, and this. I'm like, y'all are missing the point.
The big picture. The
big picture and the overarching point is organizations, corporations that take a step back from the bully. We don't trust you because you took a step back from the bully.
That's right. Now's the moment of truth.
Is it going to be the ultimate, most effective way of getting Target's attention? I know they're losing a lot of money right now because of this. Is it going to be the way? Jemar Bryant has come out and said, I think 100 days, no
boycott,
Target, boycott of Target. They're going to lose a lot of money. Is it going to lead to them saying, oh no, we're going to bring it back? It's not necessarily about that. I think people are saying they're trying to communicate displeasure that says, you as a corporation, we expect you to stand for us, not for the people in power.
Yes.
And so we just want you to take a stand for something.
So this is a really interesting conversation in terms of what protest looks like
when
organizations back down from DEI. So there's multiple things here. One, I think that part of what we need to do is not just show corporations that they're going to lose money for backing down, but show corporations they're going to gain money by taking a stand,
which is the Costco thing, right?
Thing,
now
right?
people are
let me get my membership.
We have people and out because a Costco in our city is actually being built right now, so it will be here by the end of the year. But there's another Costco about an hour away in a neighboring city, and we've actually had Black people from our churches and friends who have driven
Yes.
like an hour away to get a Costco car.
100%.
To say, all right, well, I'm going to go and I'm just going to go support just because. So I think it's really, you're bringing up a great point about this is how you show them the benefits of what it looks like to actually support us.
This
and
is what I keep saying, like to corporations, even higher ed, right? Like you think you're protecting your bottom line by not making the far right angry. What I'm saying is if you actually take a stand in this moment, there's a whole constituency out there that you will open up to because they see a principled stance and that you're not backing down. So what I'm saying is there's money organizations are leaving on the table because they can only see their current constituents and the potential of losing them if they are perceived as woke or DEI. What they're not seeing is a potential audience they'll gain by taking that stand.
Yes.
I mean, nowadays, more and more people, it's not just about price. It's do you represent my values?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's what they're missing.
It's high. Prices are high everywhere.
Prices are high and getting higher, by the way.
Getting higher.
All y'all who voted for the price of eggs.
I thought eggs was coming down. I thought grocery prices was going to be.
Gas is going up. Inflation going to be there.
So speaking of which, there's this executive order. There's this order about DEI.
Bro, why you getting my pressure up?
But you know what? I'm trying to understand what this means, right? So explain to us and to the people, what does it mean that there's this executive order? Can we read part of that order? Can we talk about that a little bit? What does this specifically mean? And what is some of the language that's being used in this?
So there's actually a constellation of orders and policies that are coming out in the first 100 days of this regime. One of the ones that we'll focus on here is called Ending Radical and what they want. Look, how much you going to use that word radical every time you talk about this? You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Anytime they want to, anyway.
Starting to become a compliment now. Y'all think I'm a radical? Snap. I've been killing it. I didn't realize
we want to really break it down means getting down to the root of an issue. So do call me a radical.
Please.
Anyway. Yes. Anyway, ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing. Executive order. So this is coming from the president. Purpose and policy said the Biden administration forced, quote, illegal and immoral discrimination programs going by the name diversity, equity, and inclusion into virtually all aspects of the federal government in areas ranging from airline safety to the military. So we could have a whole episode on that sentence.
Yes.
Do you hear all the codes in there?
Yes.
Just to break it down for people. Number one, let's pin it on the Democrats. The Biden administration did this, as if DEI hadn't been part of a movement of going back to really the 80s and 90s when corporations started talking about multiculturalism, right?
Absolutely.
And then it's morphed and evolved into DEI over the past 40 years. Then it goes on to say it's forced, right? They're imposing this government overreach, illegal and immoral. So here we have a policy violation. They're saying it's illegal. And they're making a value statement.
Exactly.
It's immoral. Like, this is wrong. And then they say what DEI stands for into virtually all aspects of the federal government, airline safety.
Yep.
Yep. I remember even before the tragic plane collision in Washington, D.C. in January, Elon Musk tweeting or retweeting something that said about these were airline pilots. And the implication was these were DEI hires and that the person would rather have, quote unquote, qualified pilots than DEI hires. And Musk amplified that.
Wow.
And then when that tragic plane collision with the helicopter did happen over Washington, D.C., immediately from the president, like, this is the easiest slam dunk from a commentary perspective.
Yeah.
All you have to say is condolences.
Yeah, this is tragic.
It's tragic. Yeah. He didn't do that. He said this was because of DEI. Unqualified pilots. All right?
We're dealing with craven people, man. It
is little people in terms of their character. Yeah.
It's a principality, bro. But it's dangerous, man. I believe it's spiritual rot, bro.
About the military.
Yes,
so
please.
Prior to the inauguration, when they signaled they were going to do all this, roll back a DEI, right? there was a statement from the military. I forget which branch or department put it out, but it said explicitly, diversity is a strength in our military readiness.
Yes.
And now they got Pete Hegseth over Secretary of Defense, and they're having these executive orders about DEI, and they are refuting their own military leaders who said DEI is strengthening our fighting forces.
I have friends who are in the military and have been in the military for over a decade. And we have a lot of flight school students that are at our church just due to the nature of the bases there and everything. So it's a training hub. And so there's honestly probably 30 or 40 military people off the top of my head that I can think of, and more come every single week. And one of our veteran military members, she said, I already feel the shift.
Ooh.
She said, I remember what it was like in 2016. And I remember what it was like for those 4 years. And I already feel the shift. And I already feel, she said, we have no idea, people have no idea how demoralizing it is, how mentally draining and taxing it is for now certain members of the military basically to be unmasked and now to basically stand and treat people of color, marginalized people, extremely poorly as a result of this president. And as a result of, they finally get their opportunity to exercise overreach and authority. And she says it really weighs on the mental health of the Black military members. She said it's the mental health.
Yep.
And so it's not just a matter of policy, because none of this, whether it's cultural Marxism, social justice warriors, DEI, woke, these aren't about policies, it's about people. It's about people. It centers people. And people think, oh, it's policy. No, it's about people. It's about real human beings who are being targeted now as a result of this administration's refusal, and really our country's refusal, to reckon with this history.
And it's really a willful obtuseness, right? There has always been deep misunderstandings about things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, or whatever label it happens to go under at the time. And there's always been this idea of quotas.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter who it is. We just need to hit these particular numbers for these particular demographics. And that's where you get this insidious seed planted that because it's a woman, it's a Black person, it's a person of color, it's a disabled person, they only got their job because of their demographic.
Yeah.
And they don't have the skills for the job, which is wrong on multiple levels, right? Now, number one, people from historically underrepresented groups have to work harder for these things, right? So overqualified. We can just look at presidential candidates.
Yes.
We can look at, I also saw on social media the side-by-side comparison of the qualifications of the White House spokesperson under Biden and now the spokesperson under this regime. And the list of like journalistic qualifications, Jean-Pierre, Corinne, and whoever's in there now, who wears that cross necklace front and center as she spews lies for this regime. It was, you can go down the list, right? So another error of this thinking around DEI is you're taking jobs from white people, right? From qualified white people,
right?
Number one, those jobs didn't belong to
exactly
them in the first place. And number two, we can go down the list of white folks who fail up.
Yes, absolutely.
Because of their demographic.
For sure.
Right? So those seeds have been there all along in the culture.
Willfully obtuse. Well, let's come back and let's talk about our response as Black Christians, as Black people now. What do we need to do now, knowing that this is another iteration of attack? What do we need to prepare for, and what do we need to do as the president continues to attack DEI? We'll be back on Pastor Mike. Well, greetings and God bless, family. This is your host of Pastor Mike, Tyler Burns, and I am so excited that we're still doing Pastor Mike 11 years after we started. Think about this. 11 years after we started, we're still doing this. And the reason why we can do it is because people like you have supported us from the beginning. We would not still be here if not for the support of people who are our patrons. And if you go to patreon.com/passthemic, if this podcast has helped you in any way, shape, or form, if we've encouraged you to think more deeply about race and justice, if we've inspired you to make change right where you are, if we've been an oasis in the desert in the midst of toxic church spaces, we need your help. We need your support. For just a few dollars every single month, you can keep us going. You literally, as our listeners, keep us going. So head to patreon.com/passthemic. We're passing the mic to you for your support so that we can continue doing this podcast that so many people love. Thank you so much for your support. If you are already a patron, and if you're not, just a few dollars a month. Thank you so much. So Jemar, we've been talking about DEI and the president attacking it through executive orders, a constellation of policies. What do we need to do? Because I think this is what's most important. I think all of us recognize how wrong this is. All of us recognize who have been in this work, whether you're a black Christian, or you're an ally, or you're a person of color, you recognize that this is wrong. You recognize that there's something off about this. You also recognize how hateful it is. And you've probably been labeled with language before. So this hits particularly close to home for a lot of us, right? So what should we do? Because we want to equip the people with something. What should we do? Now, how do we live? How do we exist? How do we protect ourselves in a world where it seems like the vitriol is rising?
So, number one, we have to understand the scope and the comprehensiveness of this. So very practically, like, go read the executive orders.
Yeah.
And I'll read you one more part because this gets to the scope of what we're dealing with. So it says, each agency, department, or commission head, in consultation with the Attorney General, the director of OMB, which, by the way, is Russ Vogt, who is the architect of Project 2025, recently confirmed, and the director of OPM, Office of Personnel Management, as appropriate, shall take the following actions within 60 days of this order. Terminate to the maximum extent allowed by law all DEI, DEIA, the A stands for accessibility, and environmental justice offices. And positions, including but not limited to chief diversity officer positions, all equity action plans, equity actions, initiatives, or programs, equity-related grants or contracts, and all DEI or DEIA performance requirements for employees, contractors, or grantees. And that's just part one.
Yeah.
It goes on. So why do I read that?
That's significant.
It starts with the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a signal. That's where the executive branch can start. They can, literally with the stroke of a pen on an executive order, eliminate anything related to DEI. And by the way, they slipped in environmental justice, which also has a racial element, because where do they locate factories? Where does pollution tend to concentrate? In poorer areas, in areas with black and brown people, right? So there's a racial element there too. But that is just a signal. So why are corporations backing down? The government can't issue an executive order per se that affects, capitalistic business. It is, though, intimidating.
Yes.
Corporations and higher ed, I'll add. Because any organization that, particularly ones that get money from the federal government, and in the case of higher ed, they're getting grants and scholarship funding, they are going to want to protect that money. And if they know that DEI is pissing off this regime, guess what? They're going to pull back from DEI so they can protect their bottom line. So it's coming for you wherever you are. Wherever you are. Oh, by the way, one example. Because like you said, this is not about policy. This is about people. I got an email from the publisher of my next book, which is coming from Penguin Random House. And they had to send an email saying, we stand behind our authors and your topics, right? Like, it was explicitly geared toward folks like me who are writing about racial justice. And literally in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, how's this going to affect the publishing industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so even, big 5 publishers are having to send out messages and respond to this because they know it's coming for them.
Well, and not only that, you have, again, you speak about this constellation, and when we talk about it's coming for you wherever you are, this also includes how the administration is treating migrants and refugees, but also affects their attacks on the Department of Education.
Oh, yeah.
And Title I schools. My kids attend a Title I school. Kids with IEPs. Both my kids have IEPs. Those who are ESE students, like, it's really attacking a number of different things. And it's, again, a constellation. It's not just the DEI. It also affects Department of Education. It's coming for you wherever you are. And really, it seems like each of these orders and policies builds on each other or ties together and works together, kind of build it in a way that intimidates people of color. Because it's not, there's not, that's the point. The point is to intimidate people from siding with these ideas or ideologies, to push them back, to basically silence them, to mute them.
There's a bigger narrative that this is all trying to reinforce. This is the backlash of every white guy who had to sit in a diversity training and felt like he was being told that he's a bad person because he's a white heterosexual male and has to use all this different language and terminology. And he just wants to go back to the good old days when he could say whatever he wanted and people would understand his heart and his motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't have to tiptoe.
Yeah.
He didn't have to change is what it was.
Can I tell you, I've also seen this with churches as well. I see far fewer churches, white churches, that are acknowledging Black History Month.
Wow.
I know this sounds like it's really small, but I've seen far fewer churches acknowledging publicly Black History Month. That's fewer white churches. Far fewer white churches, because that's low hanging fruit. That's easy, right? It's a post. It's a mention. It's education. It's awareness. It's all of that. And I see far, far fewer now doing that. They don't feel like they have to now. The world has changed, right? Like the country has changed. The presidency has changed. Power has shifted. And so now they feel like a little bit like, oh, okay, well, if I don't acknowledge this, it's like, it is what it is. What are the consequences going to be? It actually may be more consequences for me if I do acknowledge this with my predominantly white congregation.
It was already tenuous. So now, they have an easy out. And what the grander narrative I think this is part of is people wanting to hold on to their racism and to be able to express it without repercussions. So we had gotten, especially post-civil rights, to a point where it was at least a social faux pas,
right?
To be racist, right? It was never to the degree that we would want it to be, viewed as immoral and disqualifying or anything like that. But it got to the point where you don't say the quiet part out loud if you wanted to continue to ascend.
This was my favorite part. People would call people who held racist ideology dumb or stupid. It was a dumb idea. They were idiots. They were stupid. They were wrong. I'm not gonna say it's immoral. I'm not gonna say you're racist. You're just dumb, man.
Right.
It's just stupid, man. Bro. You're just stupid. It's like I've sat in rooms and people are just stupid. They don't, and I'm like, whoa. Like, there are a lot of intelligent racists.
Exactly.
What are you talking about here? Exactly. But like, that's what it was. It was just social faux pas. It wasn't necessarily even sin per se. We wouldn't use that language. We use that as something you need to repent of.
I was just going to say, like, we both have had conversations where we have had to reinforce the idea like racism is actually sin.
Yes.
Like, it's not just a social disagreement or, a difference of opinion. Like, we should actually be disciplining this in the church.
Yes, absolutely.
As sin,
absolutely.
right? And now, make America great again. Make America racist again.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like, not that it ever went away, but they really do want to go back to a time where it is not harmful to you to express racist ideas. We see this in some joker who, a young guy in his 20s, worked for the administration, got called out on a social media post where he was explicitly racist. Resigned from his job because when that surfaced, there was backlash. Then Elon Musk,
as a speechwriter,
puts out a poll and says, should he be rehired?
Oh, that young man. So it's two different guys. So there's one that's a speechwriter that then now is in a different position. There's one that he had all these messy, and then that's the one, I believe, this young man that the vice president commented on.
Oh, God.
Basically said we shouldn't ruin this kid's life and everything.
Social
media. I don't agree with him, but we shouldn't ruin this kid's life.
And this is not like 20 years ago he did this thing. This is like months ago.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the end game. Is we want to be able to say, actually, what the end game is a racial hierarchy that they want to be able to reinforce through policy. And that hierarchy has white moneyed men at the top. It has foot soldiers in poor white people.
Yes, absolutely.
Who adopt this ideology and this aspiration that they can be one of the white moneyed people one day too. Mm-hmm. This is behind the Civil War as well.
Exactly.
So, I just want you ask practical stuff. Understand the game.
Yes. I think another practical step is, we have to protect Black institutions.
Speak on it.
And if we're talking about what's coming down the pipe, I think you would agree, Jemar, it doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop at this moment. Like, where is this going? And I think before you speak to where this is going, I just want to say we have to protect our Black institutions. We have to protect our Black entities. And I just want to say this for the church, from the church's perspective. I don't think we have the luxury anymore of being intellectually lazy regarding Black institutions, artists, creatives, collectives, and just calling them in that lazy passing statement demonic, right?
Wow.
Or witchcraft or witches, or they're worshiping other gods. We really need to be careful with this, because the more we personally undermine Black institutions, the more they will be weakened from an administration and really a wave beyond this administration that wants to silence us. We have to come alongside each other and really make sure that we fully support Black institutions that have agency, that have autonomy, that give Black people space and room, that allow us to be encouraged and empowered, that allow us to coalesce power, that allow us to come together and organize. I mean, this is for your fraternities, your sororities, all of this. These are now vital spaces. These could become an oasis in the desert for a lot of people to actually find belonging, not lose their sanity, and also receive the necessary support to protect them against being attacked in the classroom, in the boardroom, in all these specific places. It can give them connections, networking, and strategy to be able to have support. And I think the church has often stigmatized those because, again, it's this intellectually lazy, like, these are demonic, or they're worshiping other gods. They're doing, and it's like, guys, these are essential Black organizations that have allowed us to coalesce power and allowed us to build connections with one another. And we don't need to remove them. We actually should probably strengthen them and get involved more with them in our connections and also in our support.
They not hear what you're saying, Doc.
Hey, man, I'm just saying, man. Just, you got to think strategic, man.
They don't feel the weight of your words. This is what Black institutions were built for. So you said, it's expanding, right? We said whatever's happening with the executive order and federal government is just a signal. What's coming down the pike? They're going to come after HBCUs. They're going to come after Black fraternities and sororities.
For sure.
They're going to come after anything that is Black specific in particular, but race or ethnicity specific. And these things are designed to help groups that have been historically discriminated against, right? So here's a key principle, and you'll hear this in the language. The far right will talk about DEI is discriminatory. And what their meaning is discriminatory toward white people.
Yes.
And what they're saying publicly is we should be colorblind. Race shouldn't factor into it. And when you talk about DEI, you're taking race into account, and that's discrimination. What they're not saying is who was discriminated against, and that there's good forms of discrimination, compensatory discrimination. Meaning, MLK basically put it, I'm paraphrasing, the Negro has been something special done against them. Now needs something special done for them. Right? To repair. So it's discrimination to repair from damage this other racist discrimination has done, right?
Yes.
So that's what they'll say. Now they're going to come for Black specific institutions.
Absolutely.
And they'll say it's discriminatory. They'll say, well, why is it a Black college? Why is it a Black women's venture capital fund? right. And here's how deep it goes. So I work at a HBCU, Simmons College of Kentucky. In the wake of this executive order, we got a staff and student-wide email from the president. I think this is the only time I've ever gotten one from that went to the whole.
Wow. Yeah.
And he said, you've likely heard the news about the recent executive order, along with various interpretations of how it might affect our institution's operation. And I understand it may have caused some concern. And here's the power of Black institutions. But let me remind you, Simmons College of Kentucky was born in adversity. We were founded during the darkest days of our nation's history, when true freedom was still a dream for our people. Yet by God's grace and the unshakable faith of those who came before us, Simmons not only survived, but thrived. The same faith sustains us today. We need Black institutions. That's the power of
Black institutions. Yes. So I think really we have to restructure our lives to say, how can we support Black institutions? And this isn't some sort of like plug for the Witness, although great, but or Pastor Mike, I mean, amazing. But beyond that, I think we need to say, how can we actually take intentional steps to support Black institutions in our day to day, to support one another, to uplift them, to encourage them, but also how do we restructure budgets to make sure that now, we're giving opportunities. Money now talks. We're, I recognize as someone who does racial justice coaching and consulting, that is probably likely going to change the game, for many of us, right, in a Christian context. And so as we think through that, we need to process like, oh, this is actually something that needs to change, and a community collective effort to support. And so we don't just need to boycott bad institutions, support good institutions. We also need to support Black-led institutions that are on a smaller scale so that they can survive, thrive, and make it through these next 4 years.
I mean, we live in this, right? Like, this is, as we record this, it's Black History Month. It's been maybe the slowest Black History Month.
Oh, for sure.
I can remember.
Oh, for sure.
In terms of like speaking engagements, podcasts, book sales, whatever you want, whatever metric you want to use, right? Why? A lot of people are backing down. A lot of organizations and institutions, especially white ones. Even if it has some measure of diversity, whatever way you want to slice that term, the reason why, this is a whole episode, the reason why Black institutions are so important is because they were founded with racial justice in their DNA.
Yes.
Whether they were explicit about it or not, the reason why it's a Black institution is because they understood they wouldn't get a fair shake in a majority white institution.
Yes.
Right? And the difference is, PWIs, predominantly white institutions, whether that's a corporation or higher ed institution or a church, they weren't founded on it. Some were explicitly founded on a segregated basis, right? So we're trying to go back and retrofit these institutions.
Yeah. It's not in the DNA. What?
When there's a push, like an executive order, they back down because it's not core to their identity. It's something they added on, and it's not organic to who they are.
Yeah.
And this is, anyway, what do? April 15th is coming. People are looking at their budgets for tax season and everything.
Yes.
While you're looking at your budget, allocate some to Black institutions.
Yes.
Put the Witness on there. Go to patreon.com/passthemic. Or more and more, because we don't trust many institutions, you do have Black voices.
Yeah.
And perspectives who you value. And we generally just consume. Oh, it's good stuff.
Support the Substack. Support the Substack,
like,
bro.
You have to, like, this stuff is not free. It costs time. It costs energy, maybe money to go travel and research and interview, produce the podcast, whatever it might be. Like, you need, if you are finding value in Black folks saying certain things, support them.
That's good,
tangibly.
Bro. That's good. Of course, as he mentioned, you can support us, patreon.com/PastorMike if you so choose. But there are a lot of different organizations
yeah.
that you can support, and a lot of different people that are doing phenomenal work on the ground, and it takes a village to do so. Man, this is going to be an ongoing conversation. I feel like we'll be coming back to this a couple of times before the end of the year and really pressing through what can we do now? How do we strategize? But we want to hear from the people. Where are you seeing this affect your lives? Where does you seeing this affect your Black institutions, organizations, collectives, your personal mind, your body, all the above? We would love to hear from you. Reach out to us wherever podcasts are listened to. You can subscribe, rate, and review. You can also, again, support us on Patreon, or you can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can see Jemar's fit on the Pass the Mic podcast YouTube. And as we always say, we'll see you soon on the next Pass the Mic.